WLBT News starts now with breaking news.
And we are continuing our coverage of this breaking news tonight. 2 children have been shot on North State Street in Jackson in front of UMMC. And here's Maggie Wade with the very latest.
All right, Howard, we are here on North State Street. This section of North State right in front of UMMC is still blocked off. Police continuing their investigation. As you said, 2 children were injured, 1 shot in the leg, 1 in the torso. Right now, we have with us Jackson Police Chief James Davis. And Chief, tell us about what happened. We know that the mother was traveling down North State Street and saw an arm come out of a car and multiple shots were fired.
Yes, we got a call shortly before 5:30. On this evening where we received a call where shots were being fired. And the mother stated that she was traveling south on State Street when a black sedan with a Canon paper tag on the back pulled up, arm come out the window, fired into her car, striking 2 kids. One kid, 1-year-old, was shot in the leg, and a 3-year-old was shot in the chest. However, they are in stable conditions, non-life-threatening injuries at this time.
You're searching for the suspect, but this initially came out as an active shooter here on the campus at UMMC. Employees received alerts as well as students to shelter in place, and we're hearing the sound coming from this garage. So with the mother running into the hospital with those 2 injured babies, that is where that happened, and UMMC took the necessary precautions to keep people safe.
Yeah, they did, and as you can hear right here, if you pull up here standing in the street, whatever those cars are running over, it sounds like a shot being fired. So I assume that's why the call came in as active shooter.
Now, at this point, what are you doing as far as the investigation is concerned? Talking to the mother, I know she's there with her babies. They're being treated here at UMMC.
Yeah, we're talking to the mother, trying to get all the evidence that we possibly can. We're trying to talk to witnesses. We partner with UMMC to try to get any surveillance that we possibly can to solve this case.
Now, we also know that multiple shots were fired. You had multiple shell casings involved here.
Yes, we had multiple shell casings on the ground right where the car was fired into.
The first thing that comes to your mind is, what possible motive could someone have to fire into a car with 2 babies inside?
It's apparent to be social issues. It's people resolving their conflicts by pulling out handguns, firing into. So it wasn't an isolated incident. That person pulled up to that particular car, fired in that particular car for unknown reasons. Nobody else's car was fired into. So that tells me it's a social issue. It's an issue where people have to resolve their issues without pulling out handguns, shooting each other.
How long before you clear this area? Right now, traffic is not being allowed on North State Street in this area right in front of UMMC. Cars can go out from the campus, but they're not being allowed in this area.
Yeah, we're just making sure that we are covering all our bases, collecting all the evidence we possibly can to solve this case.
We also saw police officers inside the garage, canvassing that garage just to make sure they could give UMMC the all clear.
Yes. We're just making sure that the people visiting UMC are safe, and also they're making sure that the suspect car wasn't in there. So the car, that particular car wasn't on campus, just to take an extra precaution to ensure that everybody's safe.
If anyone has any information about the gunman, the person who fired these shots, what is the best thing they can do at this point?
They can call 601-960-1234 or call 601-355-TIPS. And we just only need their information, not the name.
The babies are in stable condition, so at this point you expect them to be okay?
Yes. The report that I got from the hospital, they are in stable condition, which is good.
All right. Chief Davis, thank you so much for talking with us. You heard it. The children, 1 and 3 years old, they are in stable condition being treated here at UMMC. That's the good news. Right now, Jackson police are searching for the person responsible for this shooting. It happened right here on North State Street in front of UMMC. We are continuing to follow this still developing story as well as the investigation with Jackson police. Reporting live from Jackson, Maggie Wade, 3 on your side.
And of course, that portion of State Street's going to be shut down for a while, as well as the perimeter of UMMC. Our Patrick Ellis is in Skycopter with an exclusive look at what's going on from above. Patrick?
Hey there, Howard. We are continuing to watch this very closely. Of course, State Street is shut down right now from Lakeland all the way back over to Woodrow Wilson. We've seen some people on Woodrow Wilson trying to turn onto State Street. That's going to be a no-go right there where the active scene is still ongoing, where we have still a very heavy police presence. Though over the last probably 10 or 15 minutes, we've noticed that the police presence has lessened a little bit as things continue to de-escalate a little bit. Earlier, we watched the vehicle, the gray vehicle that was described with the two children inside of it, the mother and everything of that sort, that was taken away on a tow truck away from the scene probably about 10 or 15 minutes ago down State Street. And again, we have noticed that they have the area cordoned off. You will not be when you try to turn onto State Street from Woodrow Wilson. There's a barricade there. You're not going to be able to go past there. UMMC employees and students from the campus are able to maneuver in this area to get off of campus at this time. We don't know exactly if people who are coming onto campus are able to do the exact same thing. It seems like they're trying to have to make some other arrangements to get around all of this this afternoon. We also have an accident that is just off of on Old Canton, just off of Lakeland. Looks like a little fender bender right there, but again, nothing to do with what's going on here. Of course, again, it's still an active situation from the standpoint of the police presence that's still here, but obviously things are beginning to de-escalate a bit here on North State Street after two children were shot earlier this afternoon. Woodrow Wilson is starting to widen up a little bit when it comes to everything as far as the traffic is concerned. We haven't seen a lot of issues over the last probably 30 minutes or so because a lot of people have avoided the area as per what they should be doing. But other than that, again, we're just kind of watching the other spots. Of course, this does not affect St. Dom's. This does not affect over towards the VA. So if you have to go to those two hospitals, that's not the issue. It's right along State Street where you're not going to be able to get to UMMC at this point in time. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated here from Skycopter. I'm Patrick Ellis.
All right, thanks a lot, Patrick. And our team coverage continues with Amber Gerard, who's on State Street as well. What's the latest there, Amber?
That's right. I'm on State Street in Woodrow Wilson, and it seems like there are a few police officers are still left. The majority of them have gone. Things are much calmer now. When I first got here, the scene, as you can imagine, was quite chaotic, and I did see officers putting markers down where they found shell casing. But right now, the scene has been clear for a while, and what police are focusing on right now is finding the person responsible for hurting these children. In Jackson, Amber Gerard, 3 on your side.
All right, Amber, thanks a lot. And to recap the events of the day, around 5:30, shots fired from one vehicle into another vehicle on North State Street. 2 children, ages 1 and 3, injured. One was shot in the leg, the other in the torso or chest area, as the police chief just outlined. They are looking for a suspect right now. Earlier today, it was characterized as an active shooter at UMMC, but it was not actually an active shooting situation. But that was for safety for staff and students at UMMC as a precaution. All is clear there at UMMC right now, and traffic resumes as normal within that facility. But traffic along North State Street in front of UMMC is still blocked off as they investigate what's going on. Now, the person who fired the shots that injured those 2 children or persons is still out there, and police are trying to find them, or him or her, and get them in custody. We're still covering this. We have teams on the scene, and we'll have much more after this. And we're going back to Patrick Ellis now in Skycopter with an exclusive look at above at the scene going on North State Street in front of UMMC, where 2 children were shot. Patrick?
Hey there, Howard. Again, we're looking back towards what's going on over there outside of UMMC this afternoon, this evening rather, along North State Street. They still have the traffic backed up around State Street from Woodrow Wilson all the way down to Lakeland, where you're not going to be able to go through that area. Now, again, UMMC employees and students who are on campus are able to maneuver around in this area and able to use going through the vet parking lot back over towards West Street, and also they're able to use State Street to get around some of this. It's still some indications that you're not going to be able to come into UMMC. For the folks who are coming onto campus for the night shift, we have not seen a lot of people kind of getting through those areas at State Street and, well, I guess it's Old Canton and Lakeland and State Street over at Woodrow Wilson. A lot of folks are having to cut through the vet parking lot to come back across into the UMMC area at this point. Of course, the situation continues to de-escalate. We've been noticing that the police cars have been getting fewer and fewer over the last couple of minutes, and as we reported to you a couple of minutes ago, that the gray sedan where the children were shot in, that was taken away from the scene probably about 20-25 minutes ago now on a tow truck down State Street. This does not affect the VA. This does not affect St. Dom's either. So if you have to go to either one of those hospitals, that's not affecting. This is not affecting those areas. You're able to get into those areas just fine. It's just right now in front of UMMC between State Street, along North State Street from Woodrow Wilson back over to Old Canton and Lakeland. That's where things are cordoned off. And we've seen a couple police officers in and around the Bellhaven area. They're looking for that suspect. I'm certain that at this point we've seen a couple of police cars kind of moving through this area trying to search for the suspect that is still on the loose at this hour. Of course, from Skycopter, we'll continue to keep you updated from up in the sky. I'm Patrick Ellis.
All right, Patrick, thanks a lot. We're bringing in Melissa Faith Payne now, who's also been following this, and you can't imagine the horror of people hearing that there's an active shooter on the scene, folks working at UMMC, especially with all that's been going on in the country with
Absolutely.
Active shooters, mass shootings, what have you. So thankfully, it's an all-clear situation right now, but we still have 2 children injured.
When the call first came out, employees there at UMC got text messages from the people there at UMC telling them to find a place to hide and to stay put as they handled the scene. We heard the police chief talk a little bit earlier how they thought it was an active shooter in the parking garage because of when people drive by at UMC, you can hear that loud,
click, click,
that rattle sound, and people thought that those were shots that were fired when actually those shots were fired. You can see the car right here. They were fired at that car, that gray sedan, which was driven by a mom with 2 small children in the back. Now, earlier when Maggie was speaking with the police chief, he talked about all of those shell casings that were there on the ground beside that vehicle. And when he described it, it was really chilling. He talked about how she was driving there on UMC, driving there on State Street, and that car pulled alongside her, the window rolled down, and an arm came out, and those shots were fired. Several shots. The mom, not injured, but she was able to stop the car. She grabbed those kids and then ran onto the campus there at UMC. Thankfully, the 1-year-old shot in the leg, the 3-year-old shot in the torso, both in stable condition. Just a few moments ago, I do know that employees at UMC did receive that text message saying it's all clear, come to work. Because things are safe there, and they do need to come on back to work, working these evening shifts.
I can only imagine the distress, the terror of that mother and her children being shot. And I believe Maggie was speaking to the aunt of the children as well, who was also very distressed, trying to get a status update on the kids and her sister to see what was going on out there. But that's the scene right now. It's still an active investigation because they have not found the person or persons responsible for this shooting. But we do know that everything is all cleared, as you just mentioned, over at UMMC. And
you brought up a good point. The shooter in this case is still on the loose. And the only thing we know for sure is that it was a male who was driving a black Nissan sedan with a Canon paper tag. He was last seen going south on Woodrow Wilson. So again, like you said, this is still an active situation, but anyone who may have been in that area at that time, if you were there on State Street, if you were there on Woodrow Wilson, right around 4:35, 4:45, 5 o'clock, you saw this or you heard this, they are asking that you call the Jackson Police Department immediately because they need some help finding the suspect in this case, who again rolled down his window as he pulled up alongside this mom with two children in the back.
How cold-blooded can you be to do something like that? You know, roll down your window, fire, you know, how
Several
many
shots.
We don't know yet. We don't look at all the shell casings.
They're on the ground.
We just don't know how many shots were fired, but someone apparently very angry or disturbed about something. I don't know what it is, but hopefully they will catch that person. If you see that vehicle anywhere around the city matching that description with that Canon tag on the back of it, call police immediately. Don't try to stop or approach that person. Call police and let them know the location so they can get over there and act accordingly. But this is just a horrible situation. Thankfully, it was not an active shooter situation at the UMMC hospital. And again, let's point out, as you mentioned, in the parking garage, when we initially reported, because these things are so fluid, things change rapidly.
So quickly.
We initially reported an active shooter because an active shooter alert was issued. But as the chief pointed out in the interview with Maggie, and as you just mentioned, the sound was a popping sound of cars driving over stops that are in the parking garage.
That's right.
And it, you know, when you're of a mindset of a shooting and you hear that, you think, wow, it's going off around here. So that we were getting a lot of text messages. I got some messages as well from people who were there, some emergency medical people, and thought they heard shots.
Right, and kudos to UMC, because as soon as there were reports, they immediately sent out those text messages to the staff, to the people who work there, and to the students who were there at UMC to let them know. And I think the messages said basically there is an active shooter here on the scene. Get somewhere safe, hide. Then the last part of that message says fight, but only as a last resort, warning those people to try to get somewhere, stay safe as they got that situation handled. Like I said, thankfully it was not an active shooter, but again, the person who did fire those shots, and again, not on the campus of UMC, but right there on State Street, just in front of UMC, that person's still on the loose. The good news, I guess, the lemonade from these lemons is that those children who were shot are both in stable condition. One shot in the leg, one in the torso. That 1-year-old and that 3-year-old, and the mom had the mindset to stop the car right there at UMC,
just
pull them out and take them inside.
What a cold-blooded act. I can't believe a person would stoop to that. You know, just pull up beside, pull out a gun, and start firing randomly at the vehicle beside it. But anyway, the investigation continues, and we'll have updates as they become available. But right now, we're going to toss it over to Dave Roberts, First Alert Chief Meteorologist, to find out what's going weather-wise. Dave?
And the weather's quiet right now, but we do have some showers out there right now across central and south Mississippi. You can see this is how it looks on live First Alert Doppler radar. There is a severe weather threat for tomorrow night in this yellow color, which is really the western half of Mississippi. We're looking at a slight chance for severe weather, an enhanced threat across the river from Arkansas westward. What we're looking at, tornadoes and large hail. They are a small end possibility right now. A larger threat would be the high winds and also potential for some flash flooding as this system works its way on through. Again, the variables we're paying most attention to would be flash flooding and damaging wind, but the large hail and the tornado threat, while they're low, they are still there, and it's something we have to pay attention to as we go through the next day or so. Today's weather out there, Alpha Insurance Cam showing you decent weather, 66 degrees right now, down from the high of 72, 10 degrees above normal. That's a switch in our weather for sure, but you can see there's not too much going on now, not too much going on tonight, and you can see we'll have some more showers on the way when it comes to tomorrow night. More on the rest of your forecast tonight at 10.
All right, Public Affairs Director Mark Rolfe is speaking with the media right now. Let's go to that live.
By notification, basically get safe, get in your office. If you're out in the ground somewhere, get indoors. And you know, so we did take that action, and then it wasn't until a determination was made by law enforcement and other emergency operators that this situation had been diffused.
And I guess the regular business of taking care of patients with doctors and nurses expected to still go on in an active shooter situation?
Well, obviously, what is emergent will continue. What's not emergent, we'll pause until until it's determined that all areas are safe.
How are you
And today's client,
the police department, and getting maybe surveillance and things of that nature?
I don't know anything about that right now. I know Jackson Police Department and U.S. Marshals they're the leads in this.
let's talk about in today's climate, you know, it's better to be safe than to be sorry because you don't know. So the best thing to do is protect the people who are here on this campus.
Well, that's what we did. We didn't know. As we said, this was not actually on our campus. It was near our campus, but we're going to take precautions until we know for certain that everybody is safe. So we did that.
And around that time, a lot of people are getting off work and crossing this street, and the shooting happened here. Talk to us about how many people were here during that time. Estimate.
I have no way of knowing. Obviously, we have a lot of employees on campus. I don't even know what time this happened, but
it happened about 4:30.
So
do you have a nursing shift change at 4?
Yeah, so about between 4 and 5, there's a number of employee groups that are leaving campus.
And did you say exactly how long, I guess, the school was on? I mean, not the school. Sorry.
I do not know the exact time, how long.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Do you expect the victims to be admitted?
We were talking with Mark Roth here at UMC, and we will keep you posted and updated on any developments in this shooting.
That's system-wide.
All right, that was Mark Roth, Public Affairs Director over at UMMC, talking about the actions they took earlier in an active shooter situation. But to recap again, we have 2 children, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, shot. One shot in the leg, one shot in the torso area, but they thankfully are in stable condition. Chief Davis saying that he expects them to make a full recovery.
And Mark talking about the actions that they took there at UMC to keep their staff safe and their patients safe. And of course, they sent an alert out just as soon as they were told about that shooting situation, warning people to stay safe. He said they told them to stay inside their offices, lock your doors. The text that we got said at the very end, fight as a last resort. And then someone asked a really good question. You know, it's a hospital. There's an emergency room there. What happens? And he says the emergent, we still have to take care of them. And so they did. And then those non-emergent cases, those people were kept safe until they were deemed that the situation was safe there, right there. And again, that shooting took place on State Street, not on the campus of UMC. So the victims were taken onto the campus there once they were shot.
Yeah, and a situation like this, as I mentioned before, is always fluid and things change rapidly. And what we were told initially was that there was an active shooting situation with which, you know, they have to do in today's climate. You can't take any chances.
That's right.
And so we later learned that there was no active shooter situation, but we did have a shooting in front of the hospital, and we will stay on that. We have the shooter at large right now, and we're still trying to find that shooter. Here's some comments from Chief Davis earlier today.
We got a report that this driver was traveling down the street, and they
North State Street
southbound, right in front of UMC garage, where individual pulled up to them, let the window down, put their arms out the car, and fired shot into this gray sedan.
I mean, how cold-blooded is that?
That's right.
That's just ridiculous. And the chief, I think, mentioned that it was possibly a domestic situation. Hopefully they have a suspect identified. Again, if you see anyone matching that description in a black Nissan.
A black Nissan with a Canon paper tag, and that person was last seen going south on Woodrow Wilson. If you were in the area at that time and you saw anything, you heard anything, lots of reports of people like being inside the parking garage, you know, people crossing the street at that time. If you saw anything, you were asked to call the Jackson Police Department immediately because they need your help in finding the suspect in this case. Thankfully, though, the 2 children who were injured in stable condition, that 1-year-old and that 3-year-old, expected to be okay, recovering there at UMC.
Right. Horrible situation, but it certainly could have been much worse. When someone just sticks their arm out of a window and starts firing, they obviously had a target in mind. But, you know, stray bullets, they don't have names, as they say. You know, so it's a horrible situation, but thankfully, the children will be okay. They're in stable condition with 1 shot in the leg, 1 shot in the torso area. Our Maggie Wade is standing by live with new information. Maggie?
Yes, Howard, I just talked with Mark Roth. He's with the Public Affairs Department here at UMMC, and he explained that, again, they wanted to make sure they wanted to be safe, not sorry. And when the calls came in that there was an active shooter on the campus, that's when the alert went out. They do this drill often to make sure that they can keep the patients as well as their staff, the employees and students safe on the UMMC campus. But again, there was no active shooter on UMMC's campus, but we did have the shooting here on North State Street. The children are being treated right now, evaluated at UMMC. Mark Roth also confirmed that they're being treated here. They are in stable condition. We'll continue to monitor this situation. Jackson Police actively looking for the shooter right now. Back to you.
All right, Maggie, thanks a lot, and we certainly thank you for joining us. We will continue to cover this developing story throughout the evening, and updates as they become available. Hopefully, we will be able to report that a suspect is in custody. At this point, that is just not the case.
That's right. But if you do know anything about someone driving that Nissan, a black Nissan, it's got a Canon paper tag, last seen going south on Woodrow Wilson around that time, you're asked to call Jackson Police immediately to help them solve this case.
If you see something, say something, call police, call Crime Stoppers. We need to get the person responsible for this horrible, heinous crime.
That's right.
And with that, we certainly thank you again for joining us. We will have more coverage of this on later newscasts at 9 and 10.
Have a great evening, everyone.